I once quit a job because they sent me on 3 trips to get onions in one day. I won't say where that job was out of fear of getting sued, but let's just say I was not loving it. People's reasons for quitting their jobs are their own and usually come at the end of a long deterioration of their will to live or their patience for whatever corporate BS they have had to put up with, and that most definitely extends to WWE. There have been dozens of wrestlers over the years who have left WWE because of the grueling schedule or because of unsatisfactory creative plans, but for every 10 of those, we get a wrestler that has walked away from WWE for reasons that are just a bit more odd. I'm Tempest hailing from partsFUNknown, and these are the 9 strangest reasons WWE stars have quit. But before I get on with this list, make sure of course that you like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss a fun list just like it, and make sure you check out the latest edition of Survival Series where we detail every single Roman Reigns Universal title defense. Honorable mention, Rocky III, Hulk Hogan. It may be hard to believe these days given how many wrestlers are flocking to be in whatever movie possible, but in the early 80s, if you were a wrestler, you did not do movies. So much so that Hulk Hogan taking the part as Thunder Lips in Rocky III saw him leave the WWF under Vince McMahon Sr. Depending on who you talk to, Hogan was fired over this, or if you ask Hogan, he quit. I'm less inclined to believe Hulk Hogan given he is, well, Hulk Hogan, so this is an honorable mention. Number 9, following his wife in solidarity, Jerry Lawler. Now, first impressions would state that quitting because your wife got fired from the company that you both work for is probably a good idea, at the very least for your marriage, if perhaps not for your career. However, this entry arrives on this list because of the circumstances surrounding it. First of all, the one quitting was Jerry the King diva-ogling Lawler, so frankly, any showing of respect towards women is somewhat surprising, but also, they were divorced by the end of the year. Yes, when Lawler's then wife, Stacey the Cat Carter, was fired by WWE after No Way Out 2001, Jerry followed her and remained gone until the night after Survivor Series, when he returned to relieve the frankly far superior Paul Heyman of his commentary duties. It's not the strangest reason someone could walk out of WWE, but it is strange for Jerry Lawler, so he gets the bottom spot on this here list. Number 8, DVD money, Neville. Once upon a time, AEW star Pac was tasked with being the head of the struggling WWE Cruiserweight division. A thankless task, no doubt, but when he was then asked to lose the title to Enzo Amore, a guy with the wrestling credibility of the guy outside your local Weatherspoons, always saying how tough he is, Pac, or Neville if you'd prefer, took his bag and went home. Now that is honestly pretty understandable given how amazing a performer Pac is, but that was not the only factor in Pac's leaving. In addition to having to put over the leopard-spotted New Yorker, Pac also took issue with his WrestleMania 33 pre-show match with Austin Aries being cut from the DVD release of the show. In addition to the disrespect that comes with your match being deemed the least important of the biggest show of the year, it also meant that Pac wouldn't be getting any royalty checks from sales of the DVDs. And you know what? Given the introduction of the WWE Network meant the death of all those WrestleMania bonuses for a while, I think getting worked up over making even less money from WrestleMania is a pretty justified reason to get the hell out of Dodge. Number 7, quote-unquote, too old, Randy Savage. Aging out of your job, especially one that involves athletics, is pretty normal, unless you're a US congressman, but let's move on. It can sometimes be unfortunate, but it happens. Telling one of the best wrestlers of all time, Randy Macho Man Savage, that he is too old to be a wrestler anymore, while in his early 40s, is not normal. In 1994, Savage had long since been moved out of the WWE spotlight, with the company trying to move him into a commentary role due to his age. He decided he did indeed have more to give the wrestling business bell to bell, like beating up Spider-Man, and left. After nearly a decade with Vince McMahon's World Wrestling Federation, Savage jumped ship to WCW, where he would win their world title 4 whole times. How is that for a decrepit, old, checks notes, 47-year-old? It is just hilarious when you consider that as Vince got older, so too did the average age of the WWE roster, to the point that Dominic Mysterio looked like a high schooler at Take Your Kid to Work Day by comparison. Had Savage worked in the modern era, he would have had another 10 years in him in WWE when he left, but unfortunately for all those involved, WWE was set on introducing a new generation. Number 6, not being booked in the Royal Rumble, Justin Gabriel. Everyone loves the Royal Rumble. Well, every fan, that is. As far as those behind the scenes and in the match are concerned, we have heard mixed things about WWE's most complicated match of the year. Who's coming in next? Who's getting thrown out next? When does the next spot happen? Did I just miss my cue? Some wrestlers and producers have really not liked putting that match together, but someone that seemingly does not apply to is Justin Gabriel, known best for his role in the Core era, and also some other faction. Gabriel quit WWE in January 2015 after 4.5 years on the main roster, citing frustrations over a lack of creative direction as his reason for leaving. Now, again, that doesn't seem to be terribly uncommon, but the final straw being that Gabriel wasn't booked in the Royal Rumble match is a bit more interesting. I mean, yeah, if WWE doesn't have a spot for you in the 2015 Royal Rumble, that probably doesn't look good for your position on the WWE totem pole. Honestly, this was probably a blessing in disguise for the man, because I tell you, you do not want to have been in the 2015 Royal Rumble match. Number 5, the racist t-shirt, Miles Jordan. Oh lord, where do I start? The 2019 NXT Breakout Tournament featured a bunch of names fans would recognize: Swerve, Bronson Reed, Cameron Grimes, Dexter Lumis, Joaquin Wild Angel Garza, and the biggest star of them all, Boa. Love you, Boa. Miss you every day. But the man that outlasted all of them to win that tournament was Jordan Miles, probably better known as ACH. Clearly, WWE saw big things in Miles' future, setting him up for an NXT Championship match with Adam Cole only 2 months into his NXT career. That is where the happy part of this story comes to a swift and complete end, however, as in October 2019, WWE revealed the Jordan Miles t-shirt, and oh boy. Miles very loudly and very publicly accused WWE and several of their high-ranking officials of being racist due to the shirt resembling blackface, with leaked emails of Triple H asking for the shirt to be made more teethy, which is just, I don't even know. There was a lot of controversy surrounding this whole situation, and while controversy apparently creates cash, it doesn't create fun list atmosphere, so I will just tip my cap to ACH for standing on business and move on. Number 4, the puppet, Road Warrior Hawk. In my list last week, I said AOP perfectly evoked the memory of the Road Warriors upon their arrival on the WWE main roster by leaving Paul Ellering behind, just as Hawk and Animal did in 1990. Without Ellering, the newly dubbed Legion of Doom did merely okay, and I mean, look at these two monstrous men. Nothing about their presentation should be just okay. So before long, Paul Ellering was indeed added back to the fold, but with him came something very strange. Supposedly in an attempt to find a quote-unquote softer side of the Road Warriors, which is like trying to find a softer side to Killer Croc or the 1975 Philadelphia Flyers or, I don't know, Luke, WWE introduced a ventriloquist puppet to their act. In the top tier of the dumbest ideas they have ever had, Rocco the Puppet was added to the Legion of Doom's act, most infamously seen riding to the ring on a motorcycle with Hawk and Animal in Wembley Stadium. This puppet was such a bad idea that Hawk ultimately quit WWE over it. Now, it is no secret that Hawk dealt with a load of problems around the same time, including but not limited to allegedly spending great amounts of time with the Hells Angels biker gang in London, but every account of Hawk's departure points to this stupid puppet as a massive contributing factor. Number 3, wanting to be G.I. Joe, Sergeant Slaughter. Having major crossover appeal is something that most wrestlers strive for these days. Getting the chance to catch the eye of a major franchise, get a part in The Mandalorian or a Marvel movie, that's the dream. Such was the case for one of the most iconic wrestling characters of the 80s, Sergeant Slaughter. The future WWE Champion's iconic status and larger-than-life character landed him a deal with G.I. Joe, which was hot in the 80s, and despite this extra publicity and potential new eyes on the wrestling product, Slaughter was told he couldn't do the deal, probably due to the merchandising rights and such. Wrestling was a backwards-ass place back then, so, like a sane human being, Slaughter left WWE to pursue G.I. Joe, where he would voice his own character in the animated series and get his own G.I. Joe action figure every single year until he returned to WWE in 1990 as an Iraqi sympathizer because, well, that's just not what an enemy of Cobra would do at the time. WWE would later try to spin the release as Slaughter getting fired over no-showing an event in their various home media releases that broached the topic, but eventually the truth came out and was indeed much stranger than fiction. Number 2, the Satanic Tattoo, Dan Severn. For as badass a human as Dan Severn is in real life, his run in WWE in the late 90s never quite lived up to the hype that preceded him as one of the pioneers of UFC. Participating in the Brawl for All may have had some part to play in that, but that was in 1998. By 1999, WWE was trying to find some way of adding some flavor to the former shoot fighter. In their infinite wisdom, they decided the best way to do this was to try and get Severn to tattoo 666 on his forehead and join the Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness. Now, I don't know about you, but I would not be first in line to ask a UFC Hall of Famer to get anything tattooed on his forehead, much less a mark of Satan himself. The story goes that, understandably, Severn did not react well to this, saying he wouldn't do it, only for WWE to tell him that they would bury him on TV if he refused. He, again a UFC fighter, promptly said, "Try me," and the idea was dropped, but not before Severn asked for and was granted his release. And number 1, wanting to play softball, Sid. There is a reason that one of the greatest moments of Steve and Larson's lives was Larson gifting Steve a softball signed by Psycho Sid Vicious himself. Sid's reputation for loving softball is probably one of the 3 things he's best known for, joining pooping his pants and breaking his leg. But the only one of those 3 things that caused his quitting a wrestling company was softball. Sid had a couple of stints in WWE, but it was his 95 to 97 run that saw him become a 2-time WWE champion that this story takes place. While recovering from an injury in 1997, Sid had decided he was pretty much done with working for Vince McMahon and his traveling circus, and in the months it took to get out of his contract, Sid returned and played softball, maybe his greatest passion in life. Ultimately, he would get his release and return to WCW, and speaking of that company, softball had already stuck a wedge between Sid and where the big boys play in 1991. This is perhaps even more bizarre, as it has been told that during Sid's contract negotiations with WCW President Jim Herd, he came to the table with 3 demands. He wanted something in the neighborhood of $400,000 per year. Okay, that's top guy money. He wanted the world title. Alright, likewise, top guy was with the Horsemen, and he wanted softball season off. I'm sorry, what was that last part? Yep, Sid wanted time off to play softball every year, and that, my dear friends, Jim Herd could not sign off on. So if you have ever wondered why Sid joined the WWE in 1991 to have his very bad Mania main event with Hulk Hogan, now you know. And that's our list. Make sure, of course, that you like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss a list just like it, and check out this clip from the latest Survival series.
Things had devolved a fair bit. Let me see what I can remember from that.
That is the 4-way. So that is Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and LA Knight. Yeah.
Randall Keith Orton, Alan Jane Styles, Lucretius Aurelius Knight. I enjoyed that. Had a little sip.